I am a huge puzzle game fan, and it is by far my favourite genre of games to play, so for that reason I thought why not make a sequel to my cozy game video which I put out a week ago, but instead with puzzle games this time. So if you haven't seen that video, the way that this is going to work is I'm going to play the first 2 hours of 15 different puzzle games, and when my time is up I'm putting the game down and writing the review. For this video I'm going to be going spoiler free on a lot of these games because I think part of what makes puzzle games so fun is exploring and figuring things out for yourself. So if I am going to talk about a specific puzzle just to explain the mechanics of the game, then I will warn you first, and I have mostly stuck to just the first tutorial or opening 10 minutes so nothing gets ruined. Anyway, before we get into it, if you like this video, do consider subscribing and giving it a like or even a comment down below. The engagement really helps the channel grow, and I'm going to be making more videos just like this one in the future. Thank you so much, and with that being said, let's get into it. Starting off with the Sexy Brutale, you are a guest trapped in a time loop inside a mansion that is doomed to replay the same day over and over again, ending with several murders carried out by the staff. Your job is to stop those murders, and you do that by rewinding time, observing everyone's actions, and slowly piecing together how each death happens. I'm not going to spoil any puzzles beyond the tutorial, which is only the first 15 minutes, but it is worth explaining because it really shows how the game works. Once again, everything I'm about to say here is just the tutorial of the game, and the game itself literally walks you through this section. We follow a man as he moves through this mansion. We can peer through keyholes to see what he's doing and even listen in on conversations behind the door. Doing this, we can figure out he's searching through a safe, clearly looking for something, but comes up empty and leaves the room. We follow him once again, peering through the keyhole, but because of the angle of the door, we can't see a second man who walks in behind him, pulling out a gun and shooting him. This is when the day resets. This time we wake up following a different character who's called 2. We learn that this is the man who murders our guy from before and does so by grabbing a rifle off the wall and shooting him. So when the day resets, it's up to us to try and stop him. At first I tried to take the rifle off the wall, but I'm not strong enough, and whilst wandering I realised that when the first man was rummaging through the safe, a blank round fell to the floor. After another day reset, I wait for that moment, grab the blank round, rush to the rifle before 2 gets there, load it, and it works. Saving our man gives us a new ability, as we can now bond with clocks around the mansion, which lets us jump forward in time to specific points like 4 PM or 8 PM. This mechanic is great for skipping sections of the day where we've already gathered all the information we can, and we can instead just skip straight to the important bits. It just makes maneuvering around the mansion a lot easier, this combined with things like winding keys which let you choose new starting points when the day resets, instead of always beginning at the front of the mansion. One thing worth mentioning is that the game doesn't always give you strong direction. After saving someone, your next objective is basically just to find the next person to save. And this means like a lot of wandering, observing, and just kind of resetting until you stumble onto the right thing. I personally really enjoyed that sense of exploration, but I can see how some people might find that a bit frustrating. However, when you do know who you're trying to save, it is very satisfying. Following them around and figuring out where they go, whether doors are locked, if you need a code, and then resetting and working out how to get it all feels really great. That said, the game is very structured in how you solve things. You're pushed into tackling one murder at a time rather than freely investigating the entire space at once. If you're expecting a fully open-ended detective experience, this might feel a little bit restrictive. The puzzles themselves as well are fairly simple, so don't expect to be pulling out a notebook or anything like that. Some people might find the pacing slow or the challenge a little bit light, but I think it works really well for what the game is trying to do. The controls, however, are a little bit clunky. You hold right click to move instead of WASD, which does take a little bit of getting used to. Optimization could also be better. I had played this on the Switch before and it struggled quite a bit, but on PC it ran a lot smoother with only small frame drops when moving through doors. Overall, the music is great, the gameplay ideas are really strong and effective, and the game knows exactly what it wants to be and doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a really neat experience, and if you enjoy slower, play at your own pace games with light puzzle solving or Cluedo-style detective vibes, then this is absolutely worth checking out. The Case of the Golden Idol is an incredible detective puzzle game. The way that this game works is that you are given different murder scenarios and you have to figure out exactly what happened by filling out something called a scroll. This scroll is essentially a fill-in-the-blank puzzle with words and clues you gather by exploring the scenes, checking items like maps, books or objects, and piecing together evidence about people's identities and their actions. The game throws you right in without a tutorial, and honestly I love that. The very first scene shows a man pushing another man off a cliff, and you instantly know what to do, clicking the relevant details and filling out the scroll to correctly tell the story. This level of intuitive design is fantastic. I didn't need any pop-ups or hints telling me what to do, and within 10 minutes I was already solving the first case. That feeling continues throughout the game, and it's always easy to pick up yet never feels like it's hand-holding, giving you complete agency as the player. The music is another highlight for me. Each level has its own soundtrack that just matches the scene perfectly, and just to highlight this, there is one level in particular that has this tense, eerie string music as you see the body of the murder victim, and when you move to a different area in the scene where people are blissfully unaware of what has happened above them, the music shifts to this light string jaunt. Although the gameplay revolves around solving murder cases, each one is really distinct from the last, and I never felt like I was repeating the same steps over and over again. I am a huge fan of detective games, and this might honestly be one of the best point-and-click puzzle games I have ever played. The difficulty ramps up really well too. The first couple of levels ease you in by having you name maybe 1 or 2 people and figure out how the murder happened. By level 3, you are looking at 8 people and piecing together a full paragraph explaining a complicated scheme involving multiple characters. This type of complexity for a game like this is just so satisfying to me, and I really enjoyed my 2 hours playing it. You can fill in the words at your own pace and swap them out as you gather more information. Often what you initially think works for a scenario changes entirely as new clues emerge. Filling in names and details in the right order can also help eliminate unnecessary information and make the puzzles more manageable. I honestly love how much of a challenge this game was. It will really get you thinking, and that's a good thing. I don't think I would have enjoyed this game half as much if it was too easy. Because of the challenge, when you get it right, oh boy, does it feel phenomenal. For context, I didn't have my mic set up because I didn't plan to use any recordings for this video, but it was still recording in the background and captured me finishing a puzzle. As to not spoil the solution, I'm just gonna blur the entire screen. Let's f***ing go, baby! Also, it's not like it's obvious because the killer has the murder weapon. Most people have knives on them, so it makes it really ambiguous to figure out who's malicious and who's innocent. Even in other cases, you may know exactly who the killer is and kind of see them straight away, but the puzzle isn't about finding out who's done it, it's about figuring out their name and the way they went about it. The art style is absolutely stunning, every environment is beautifully detailed, and even the chapter select menus are really charming. Between cases, small cutscenes expand the story and create a wider narrative that connects all the murders, adding just this little bit of extra depth to making the world feel alive. If I could play this game again without knowing how to solve the puzzles, I absolutely would. It is by far one of my favourite detective puzzle games I have ever played, and one of the best ones on this list. The moment I upload this video, I'm going right back to play it again, and if you're a fan of puzzle games in general, but especially detective puzzle games, The Case of the Golden Idol is an absolute must-play. Outer Wilds is one of those games that is really hard to talk about without ruining it, and I mean that in the best way possible. I think pretty much everyone who has played it would agree that going in blind is the absolute best way to experience this game. So if this section feels a little bit light on the details, that's very intentional and honestly a good sign. For this review, don't take the lack of specifics as a negative. Every small discovery in this game just feels so gargantuan and special, and even if you're slightly interested in playing it, I really want you to experience those moments for yourself. That said, I'll do my best to try and explain the general idea without spoiling anything. The game opens with you as the newest recruit in a small space program, setting out to explore your solar system and investigate the ancient ruins of the Nomai, an alien race that disappeared long ago. That's about as much setup as the game gives you, and from there it pretty much hands you the keys and says, let's go see what you can find. If sci-fi or space games don't usually grab you, don't let that put you off. This game really isn't about spaceships or anything like that. It it is about exploration. Outer Wilds gives you a fully simulated sandbox where you can physically fly your ship between planets, land wherever you want, and just poke around. The puzzles you encounter often span multiple different planets, and instead of unlocking progress through set storyline markers, the game relies entirely on player knowledge. If you know something, you can act on it, and if you don't, you can't. That's it. There's a small museum area early on that does a great job of setting the tone. It introduces a few strange concepts and unanswered questions that immediately make you curious. Things like odd objects that clearly exist for a reason, even if you don't understand that reason yet. It teaches you how to think about the world and prepares you for the kind of challenges that you're going to face later on. One thing I really appreciated is how the game tracks information for you. Everything you discover gets logged onto the computer in your ship, forming this big web of connections. It's incredibly helpful because there's a lot to uncover in this game, and being able to see what you've learned and how things link together makes the whole experience feel so much more manageable without ever feeling like hand-holding. Flying the ship was honestly really hard for me at first. The physics are very realistic. As there's no air resistance, once you keep moving, you keep moving. So I crashed into everything constantly and thought I might not be able to play this game because of it. I am glad that I stuck with it though, because once it clicks, you really get it, and it's very much a steep learning curve. And I just wanted to add this in this video to say if you struggle like I did at first, you can get the hang of it and it is worth pushing through. There is one mechanic that is central to how the game works, and it is mentioned on the store page, so I do think it's fair to briefly touch on it in this video. I will keep it vague though, and if you want to stay completely blind, you can skip ahead to this timestamp on the screen right now. The game uses time in a really unique way. After a certain amount of time, the day resets, and I'm not going to say how or why, but what this means though is that the planets themselves are constantly changing. Some locations are only accessible early on in the day, while others require you to wait, and some puzzles can literally disappear if you don't get to them in time. For context, there is a planet that slowly breaks apart as the day goes on, so your timing really matters. This game is also genuinely challenging. Some of the puzzles had me thinking about them long after I had stopped playing for the night. It doesn't guide you towards the solutions, and it's very possible to get stuck, leave something unfinished, go explore somewhere else, and then suddenly have a moment where everything clicks and you race back to try the new idea. If you love exploration, environmental storytelling, and just piecing things together by yourself over a long period of time, Outer Wilds is honestly unmatched for that. For me, this is one of those games that really sticks with you even whilst you're not playing, and I will be finishing the entire thing. When it comes to The Last Campfire, I honestly went back and forth on this one whether it should have been in my previous cozy game video, but the more I played it, the more it made sense to put it here instead. While it definitely has that cozy game vibe, puzzles are a huge part of this experience, so I think it fits much better here. In this game, you play as a lost ember traveling through different environments trying to find your way back home. Along the way, you'll help guide forlorns. These are embers who have lost their spark and become stuck in their sadness. Each forlorn has their own little dialogue, and each one comes with a puzzle you need to solve to help them move on. Progression is built entirely around solving these puzzles, and I really enjoyed the balance that they have. They're not so easy that you switch your brain off entirely, but they're also not frustrating or overly complex. For a game that looks as soft and cozy as this one does, I was a little bit worried about the puzzles and how they might feel too simple going in, but that was not the case at all. There's a really nice variety too. You've got moving tile puzzles, rotating statues into the right positions, building bridges to cross gaps, and a bunch of others that all vary in difficulty. Some clicked with me instantly, and others definitely had me stuck for a while, which I think is a good thing. As you save more forlorns, they'll gather around a central campfire, and once you've rescued enough, you'll be able to move on to the next area. That being said, I did actually find myself wanting to save every single one before moving on. There are also other NPCs scattered around who you can talk to and help out, learning more about who they are and what they're struggling with. These sit nicely in between the other forlorn puzzles and help make the world feel a little bit more alive. There is a narrative running throughout the game told by a narrator whose voice is just so incredibly calming, but it really helps pull you into the world. The story itself is quite emotional, but it's handled in such a comforting way.
You saw the frog? Did the frog mention me? You ask the frog about me, see what they say. Actually, no, just please don't tell the frog how much I talk about them.
One thing I really loved is how the puzzles often reflect the emotions of the characters you're helping. You might be protecting a light from being blown out, or rescuing someone who's drowning in their sadness. It's a really thoughtful touch that makes solving the puzzles feel much more meaningful. I also need to mention these little blue jelly-like creatures that you'll see around the world. They tend to hang out near Forlorn, so if you spot them, it's usually a good idea to follow them. The game never outright tells you this, but it's just a nice piece of environmental design that gently guides you without holding your hand. A bit like yellow paint, but not yellow paint. On top of that, important words in dialogue are often highlighted in different colours, whether it's a place, an item, or a character. It's another small quality of life thing that makes the game feel more relaxed and approachable because you're not second guessing what's important and what isn't. Even though I think this is a great game for all ages, if you wanted to play a puzzle game with someone younger, this game would be perfect. It has a very storybook feel to it, which isn't something I can say about a lot of the other games on this list. But at the same time, if you're older and just want a cozy puzzle game that has some emotional weight to it, this absolutely works too. If you like puzzle games with a cozy atmosphere and don't mind a story that might hit you right in the feels, I'd highly recommend The Last Campfire. Doors Paradox is a pretty chill puzzle game where the whole idea is opening doors. Each level gives you a small 3D scene and you're rotating things around, spotting clues, and trying to figure out how everything fits together to unlock the door. I do want to be mindful of who this game is actually for because I don't think it's aimed for seasoned puzzle fans like me, and it's not something I'd usually gravitate towards anyway. It feels much more like a point-and-click phone game, something that you play for a few minutes here and there instead of doing a crossword, and even the overall design leans heavily into that mobile game feel. Editing Mystonia here. While writing this, I checked, and yeah, you can get this on iOS and Android too, and that's actually where it was released initially before coming to PC later, which explains a lot of the design choices in this game. There are some downsides that come with it being a mobile port, which I'll get into in a bit. Starting out with the positives though, one thing I really liked about this game is how satisfying the doors are to open. As you solve a puzzle, the door almost unravels like a puzzle box, with panels sliding out and windows opening up and mechanisms clicking into place. The sound design really helps here too, with all the mechanical whirs and clicks making it feel really nice to interact with. I think this game works really well as a beginner-friendly introduction to puzzle games. It feels accessible in a way that would suit kids or complete newcomers to the genre, or even like older players who don't really play PC games as much. Control-wise though, it's just a bit awkward on PC. Because it was designed for touch control, things like rotating objects or dragging parts around can just feel clunkier with a mouse. I can very clearly picture how good this would feel on a phone, where swiping and rotating your finger would be really tactile, but on PC it just doesn't translate quite as well. Honestly, if you're deciding where to play it, everything about this game is pointing more towards the mobile version. That also brings me to pricing. On PC, the game is £12.79 at full price. To put that into perspective, The Last Campfire is also £12.79, and personally, those two feel very different in terms of what you get for money. On the phone, Doors Paradox is free with a £6.99 in-app purchase to unlock all of the levels and remove ads, so basically you're paying almost double on PC for the same content, which is just definitely something to think about. The puzzles themselves aren't very challenging. Most of the time when I got stuck, it wasn't because the puzzle was being clever or anything, but it was because it wasn't clear what was interactive and what wasn't. I would find myself clicking around randomly until something responded. For example, I had a cylinder and I tried to place it into this circle-shaped slot on the door. It didn't work the first time, so I assumed that wasn't it. I came back to it later and tried again, and suddenly it worked. Moments like that happened fairly often during my 2 hours of the playthrough. Also, when I say puzzles here, I'm using the word pretty loosely. A lot of them just boil down to clicking on everything, finding what reacts, then doing the most obvious thing with that. I was finishing levels in about 5 minutes, which gives you a good idea of the complexity here. This is really just a I've got 10 minutes to kill kind of game. You can dip in, solve a door or two, leave. Nothing carries over between levels, so it's really easy to pick up and put down. That said, people who buy the game do seem to enjoy it. Just under half of players have the achievement for finishing it, and about a third have 100%ed it, which is actually pretty high. Overall, I think if you like what you're seeing, then yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it. I personally recommend waiting for a sale or just grabbing it on the phone instead, because it feels like that is the platform it was designed for though. Blueprints is a puzzle adventure game that mixes in roguelite and strategy elements. You'll explore a mysterious mansion called Mount Holly, where rooms are built as you go and change every day. Your goal in this game is to reach room 46, which unlocks the mansion's secrets and fulfills the inheritance condition of the main protagonist you play as. Every time you reach a closed door in this mansion, the game gives you 3 random room options to choose from a draft. You select which room to place next, and that choice becomes a permanent part of the mansion's layout for that run. My first thoughts when it comes to Blueprints is this game is really something special. It offers a completely unique experience that even as a seasoned puzzle game player I've never encountered before. If you know this channel, you know that I love games that try something new and different, so this was an instant win for me. Full disclosure, I had played around 10 hours of this game before recording for this video, and there are some frustrations later on in the game that I will touch on later on in this review, but for now, based on the first 2 hours, here's what makes it great. The puzzles are incredible. Some will have you genuinely stumped for a while, and you'll spend a lot of time exploring the mansion, picking up small clues here and there. There's no hand-holding at all, it's entirely up to you to figure things out as you go. To give some context, the game is impossible to complete without taking notes, and I absolutely love that for a puzzle game. I'm not a huge fan of games that constantly tell you what to do, and part of the charm here is how challenging it is. Subtle details matter, and when you notice them, it clicks in the most satisfying way. Every room has something to pay attention to, whether it's items or notes on a wall or a necklace worn by a character. It's like an escape room on steroids, and it's just brilliant. The length of the game is huge. Unlike some of the other games on this list, what you're paying for here is a massive amount of content. Looking at Steam, most players have around 50 to 100 hours logged, which is insane for a puzzle game at this price. The world building and the lore are also just so excellent, slowly drip feeding to you as you explore the mansion and read notes, solving puzzles, and interpret more of the environment around you. As for the slight negatives, the save system can be quite frustrating. A single day loop can last anywhere from a few minutes to several hours, and you can only save when you end the day. If you're going to go into a run, you need to be prepared to commit or risk just one more run turning into a very late night. When it comes to the roguelite elements, while fun and unique at first, it can also become frustrating later on when RNG doesn't give you the rooms or items that you need. It's not really game breaking because there's always something else to explore, but later on in the game when you're waiting on a specific role, it can be time consuming. Mixing roguelite mechanics with a puzzle game is definitely unique, I'm not denying that, but it introduces a little bit of friction that might turn some players off. Patience is the main thing you're gonna need with this game, and if that doesn't sound appealing, I'd recommend trying a different game on this list, because completing the main story is just scratching the surface. If you really mesh with the game, you'll want to explore even more and figure out everything it has to offer, but if you don't, you're probably just gonna stop after the main story. Overall, this game deserves all the praise it has received. It is an incredible puzzle experience, even if a few areas don't quite hit the mark. If you're not really into puzzle games, this one is probably not for you, but if you love puzzle games and want a new challenge with something that's doing something different, this is going to dominate your gameplay for the next month. You will be thinking about solutions even when you're not playing, and you will struggle to put it down. So this next one is Monument Valley. This game honestly feels like a meditation session disguised as a puzzle game. Everything about it, the music, the sound design, the pacing, the visuals, it just all works together to create something really calm and grounding, and when I played it, I was in a pretty hectic period with a lot of work and travel, and those 2 hours just felt amazing. The game is split into individual levels, and while I played it in one longer session for the sake of this video, I actually think it would be a bit more perfect to play in short bursts, like 10 to 15 minutes, one level at a time, almost like a wind down for the night. In concept, the gameplay is very simple and the aesthetic is super minimal, so I think it's really easy to misjudge this game, and you might expect it to get repetitive, but it never does. Each new area introduces a new mechanic that keeps things just feeling fresh. For example, one area has these crow-like people that you have to work around, and another has a totem pole that you move along tracks. The art style is a huge part of what makes this game special. I can't really think of anything else that looks quite like it, and it very clearly takes inspiration from optical illusion art, especially MC Escher. Every environment feels like a little piece of art in its own right, and the game clearly knows this. There's a built-in camera button that lets you take screenshots whenever you want, and it even pops up automatically whenever you finish a level. Puzzle-wise, nothing I encountered in my 2 hours was particularly difficult, and I think that's very much by design. A lot of the time I'd just stumble onto the solutions by messing around with the mechanics, and I actually really like that for this type of game that's trying to be a bit more meditative. There were only a handful of moments where I felt stuck, and even then it was never more for than a minute or two. Everything feels really tactile and satisfying as you're dragging tiles around and pressing buttons, and honestly it kind of reminded me of a fidget toy but in game form. I will say that this game is very short. I finished the main story in about an hour and 20 minutes with 8 extra chapters unlocking afterwards, and even with those I'd estimate around 2 hours total for everything. When I recorded this, the game was on a big Steam sale and it cost me just a couple of pounds, which felt completely worth it for the experience. At full price, knowing how short it is, I'm not sure I would have picked it up, but at discount, it's a really lovely little thing to play through for a night. As a puzzle game, however, it's not really trying to challenge you. If you're looking for something more involved or mechanically deep, I'd probably point you towards the other games on this list, but if you want something a bit more chill that sits somewhere between a puzzle and an experience, this one is absolutely worth your time. Mini Motorways is a game where you connect houses and buildings together using a growing network of roads. On the surface it sounds pretty simple, but the puzzle part comes from the strategy behind it all. Houses will spawn randomly over time and you need to connect them to buildings, which I basically think of as shops. Cars will travel from their houses to the shops, pick up the little icon above it or their shopping, and bring it back home. It starts off feeling very manageable, but it can spiral pretty quickly once the map fills up. Everything is color-coded, so if you've got a pink house on one side of the map and a pink shop on the other side, you're gonna have a really bad time. The goal is to keep everything flowing for as long as possible, because once a shop gets too backed up with icons that aren't being collected, the game ends. Every in-game week, which goes by pretty fast by the way, you're given a choice between upgrades, things like roundabouts, extra road tiles, bridges, or motorways. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm amazing at this game because I'm really not, but the motorways are just my absolute favorite thing to get. You can stretch them as far as you want and they go over the top of all of your other roads, which just makes them so good. Honestly, I need to be in a pretty dire situation if I'm not picking motorways every time. The game might look simple, but I do think there is strategy behind it and there is definitely a learning curve. By the end of my 2 hours, it felt like I was starting to understand how to play smarter rather than just constantly causing myself problems. One thing I definitely learned was that you don't need to connect every house immediately. Sometimes leaving certain houses unconnected from the road systems actually helps reduce congestion, because connecting everything straight away can just overload your road network for no real benefit. Skill plays a big part in how well a run goes, but honestly, luck does too. Sometimes buildings spawn in the perfect places, and other times it feels like the game is actively trying to ruin your life. If things do start to fall apart, there's a pause button that freezes everything and lets you rework your roads, delete sections, move motorways around, and just generally try to save the run. There is also a speed up option here if things are going smoothly and you just want to push through to a week quicker, or in my case, if everything is going horribly wrong and I'm desperately trying to survive long enough to unlock a bridge or a motorway at the end of the week. This game is a follow-up to Mini Metro, which I actually haven't played, so if you have, I'd love to know how you compare the two and which one you prefer. What surprised me is even though Mini Motorways released back in 2021, it's still getting updates. At the end of 2025, they added a big update with a new Hong Kong map, ferry terminals, boats you have to account for, new challenges, and bug fixes, which is really nice to see. Also, this is a personal thing that doesn't really need to be in this video, but I discovered you can switch the game to dark mode in the menu, which just earns bonus points from me because I cannot stand light mode. On top of this, there are daily and weekly challenges, so even once you've played through the main maps, there's always something new to jump into. Some maps are also locked behind goals, like completing a certain number of trips, which gives you something to work towards. I actually tried the daily challenge just so I could play on the Hong Kong map early since I hadn't unlocked it yet naturally. This is a game where I thought I'd struggle to sit for the full 2 hours for, but honestly these 2 hours flew by. It just really nails that I'll just do one more run feeling that you get, because each run is fairly short. If you like what you're seeing on the screen now, then I can pretty confidently say that you're gonna love this game. When it comes to the tutorial of Is This Seat Taken, the game just throws you straight in. The concept is simple enough that it doesn't need a long explanation, and within 5 minutes I was already completing levels and had a solid grasp on how everything works. Each person has a specific seating need, and your job is to place them correctly. Some want to sit next to their friends, some want window seats, some haven't showered, and some absolutely do not want to be sat next to anyone who smells. So you're constantly shuffling people around to keep everyone happy. If someone isn't placed correctly, they'll show it straight away with a grumpy expression, which makes it really easy to see who needs fixing, and vice versa. When they're happy, they'll smile. Hovering over a character brings up a little info sheet that shows their requirements, and once everything is ticked off, you can hit confirm and move on to the next level. While the core idea stays the same throughout the entire game, the levels do a great job at mixing things up so it doesn't ever feel stale. I started off by placing people into taxis, and later on I was in a movie theatre where fans of a film series wear these massive cowboy hats that block the screen, so now I had to also think about sightlines. There are usually multiple ways to solve each level too, which is really nice because you're given a little bit of freedom on how to place people as long as all of their requirements are met. There are also recurring characters that slowly tell a story as you play. For example, Nat is an aspiring actor and you'll follow them through different cities as the game goes on. It's genuinely quite cute and casual to watch with a little bit of humour thrown in, and the little cutscenes between each levels help break things up nicely. Without those, I think the game could start to feel a little bit too repetitive. This is definitely a game you can put down and come back 2 weeks or even months later. It's not something I'd recommend blasting through in one sitting, and I could feel a little bit of fatigue with the game towards the end of my 2 hours when I started checking the time quite a bit. This isn't a flaw with the game, it's just how I've recorded this video. I sit down and play all of them for 2 hours straight and then write my review, and I think, like I said, this game really lends itself into more sitting down, playing for 20 minutes here and there, doing a couple levels. I did run into a few bugs during my time playing this game where character text got completely warped. Like someone was saying they wanted to eat op-or instead of popcorn, which honestly just kind of made me laugh more than it being annoying. Make no mistake with this one, it is firmly for cozy, casual players. If you're looking for something to really challenge your brain, you might find it a little bit too boring and cozy, but I think the game knows exactly what it wants to be and absolutely nails it. It doesn't promise anything more than it delivers, and if the premise appeals to you, you're gonna almost guaranteed love it. By the end of my 2 hours, I was already on the second to last zone, and that's without touching any of the optional end zone challenges, which I know are a lot trickier. I'd guess there'd maybe be another couple of hours left after that, so it is a fairly short puzzle game, but if you have played it, let me know down below what you thought about it. I personally really enjoyed my time with it. I think it's doing something fresh and different that I haven't seen before, and it has this nice balance where it's engaging without feeling too overwhelming. The art style is really cute, and I just think it's going to be one of those games that I'm going to play in between playing a longer, heavier playthrough of a different game. When it comes to Escape First Alchemist, I have to be honest, I enjoyed parts of it, but overall it just didn't hit the same highs as a lot of the other games on this list. The first thing I ran into was this narrator situation. Right at the start there's this enchanted book that basically acts as your guide, and the voice lines just repeat over and over again as he shouts at me to get me to look at him. I had an issue on launch where VSync wasn't enabled and the frame rate was pretty rough, so while I was in the settings trying to fix that, the book kept yelling at me to come look at him, even though I was literally in the settings of the game trying to fix an issue.
Hello? It might be important. Hey!
I think the settings thing is a bug, but I think the repeated voice lines was intentional, and it just really pulled me out the experience because I quite enjoyed the look of the environment I was in and wanted to look around it first, without the game just saying, come here, do this, look at me, over and over again. I think the game seems to be aiming for this more goofy Borderlands style humour, but the jokes just didn't really land for me. They felt out of place against the more serious mystical atmosphere that the rest of the game is trying to set, and judging by a lot of the Steam reviews, I'm definitely not the only one who wasn't a fan of this narrator.
So long, Vines, I fought in your general direction.
The puzzles themselves vary from fairly simple to mildly clever, but most of my playthrough they felt pretty straightforward. Early on the structure is very much solve a puzzle, get a new ingredient, make a potion, unlock a new area, and then repeat. I do want to give the game credit though. There was a couple times where I was scratching my head, but not long enough for it to feel like an actual challenge. However, I have played a lot of puzzle games, so this may just be me being used to picking up what these type of games want from me by now, so it might be a nice challenge for other people. Once you reach a new area, the next step often just sends you right back to the recipe book to unlock the next thing, which just kind of made the game feel a little bit repetitive. However, a bigger issue for me was how the game handles interactions. There are several puzzles where the screen literally tells you where to use your items. One example is this big wheel where the prompt just says use potion, and if the game hadn't told me that, I might have sat there thinking about it for a bit, but because the objective was literally spelt out on the screen for me, it felt like the puzzle was already half solved. The narrator also tends to tell you when something is missing with a puzzle, so rather than needing to think critically about what you're doing, you sort of just follow his instructions and know that you can come back to it later instead. That kind of diminishes the satisfaction that usually comes from solving these style puzzles. I did encounter a minor bug where the game put me into a recipe minigame whilst I was in the pause screen, so I did have to redo the entire recipe again. It wasn't game breaking for me, but it is worth mentioning because other players have reported way more significant issues like items falling through the floor, crashes, and all the achievements being bugged. So if you are considering this one, I definitely recommend checking the recent community feedback just to make sure that it isn't too glitchy for your liking. Another thing that didn't quite work was the co-op just seems a little bit pointless to me. The Steam page and the marketing really push for this idea of it being an online multiplayer with up to 4 players, but in practice the game is very, very linear. If you try to play with others, there's very little reason for the second, third, or even fourth player to do anything while someone is interacting with the puzzles. It felt more of a choice that they just added in as a thing to say, you can play this game with friends, but it doesn't actually translate into any cooperative gameplay. I picked up this game as part of a bundle, so I actually wasn't upset about what I received, but if I had paid the full price, I probably would have felt disappointed. There is a demo, and honestly, that's exactly what I'd recommend you do before you buy this game. The experience is not bad at all. The world, the puzzles, the atmosphere, they all have potential, but it just falls a little bit short. That doesn't mean it's a bad game by any means. I did have fun playing through it, and I'm actually pretty close to the end, so there is a chance I'll go back and finish it at some point. It's just when you put it up against some of the other incredible puzzle games on this list, games that are being more innovative and more polished, Escape First Alchemist ends up feeling a bit of a meh game. If you're curious about it though, absolutely try the demo and see how you feel. It's got its moments, and the core idea of an alchemy-themed escape adventure is pretty fun. It just didn't quite stick the landing for me in terms of atmosphere and polish. So, Escape from Mystwood Mansion. Just to be clear up front, I have actually played this game before and have 100%ed it. That took me around 3 and a bit hours across 2 different playthroughs, one a normal run and a second where I went back through looking for hidden puzzles and achievements, and I mentioned that mainly just to set expectations because this is a very short game, but what it does offer in that time is a genuinely fun and well put together puzzle experience. It's definitely more on the chill side compared to some of the other games on this list. There's no timer or pressure that's pushing you forward. You play as a delivery driver who ends up trapped inside a mysterious mansion, and your goal is to simply explore, solve puzzles, and uncover the mansion's secrets so that you can escape. The whole thing feels like a sequence of escape rooms that are stitched together, which I really enjoyed. Using the mansion as a setting was also a great choice because it really lets each puzzle area feel distinct from the last. One moment you're solving puzzles in a wine cellar, the next you're in a plant room. It keeps things visually and mechanically fresh even though the game itself is quite short. The puzzles were fairly easy for me personally, but I did notice a lot of people saying that they got stuck in certain places, so I think how challenging it is really depends on the player. For me, it landed firmly in the cozy puzzle category rather than something intense or brain melting. If you're feeling a little bit burnt out and want something relaxed that still engages your brain, this fits nicely into that space. Kind of like Monument Valley, but with a much heavier focus on actual puzzles. There is a bit of story that comes into play, especially if you go for the secret ending, but honestly, it's pretty flat. It didn't bother me too much though, because I think the main focus of this game is clearly the puzzles, and I don't think it ever promises more than that. One real downside that's worth mentioning though is the save system. The game saves at the start of each level, but if you need to stop halfway through a level for some reason and come back later, you will be reset to the beginning of that section and have to redo any progress you made. It's not a huge deal breaker, but can be frustrating. In terms of value, if you really care about playtime and replayability, the full price of this game is £14.29, and it is on the expensive side for what you get. There are other games on this list around the same price that offer a lot more content. That being said, this isn't really a fault of the game itself. Puzzle games in general don't have much replayability because once you know the solutions, that sense of discovery for the puzzle is just completely gone. So it really comes down to how much you value the experience versus the length. Overall, if you enjoy escape rooms or escape room style games and you're looking for something more relaxed, I genuinely recommend Escape from Mystwood Mansion. I'd probably suggest waiting for a sale if the price is a concern, but it's still a really solid little puzzle game. There are quite a few other escape room style games on this list that I personally enjoy more, so stick around for those, but that doesn't mean this one is bad at all. If the developers of this game made more just like it, I would definitely check them out. Speaking of escape room games, Escape Simulator is easily my favourite escape room style puzzle game of all time. If you really enjoy real life escape rooms, this is basically just that but on your PC. You're given a bunch of themed rooms to play through, ranging from spaceships to Egyptian tombs, and they also do regular collaborations with other games like Among Us and Portal, turning those into fully playable escape rooms too. You can pick up items, inspect them closely, and store them in your inventory to use later on when solving different puzzles. The game can be played solo or in online co-op, and honestly I think it shines either way. Playing with friends is just the best, but even on your own it's still a great time because the puzzles are designed so well. A big reason for that is the fact that they are made by real life escape room operators and you can feel that authenticity when you're playing. The puzzles can be ranging from pretty challenging to really easy, and in these rooms you are technically against the clock. Nothing bad happens if you run out of time, but it does give you that extra push to want to finish before it hits zero. There are also some really nice quality of life features, like being able to pin clues to your screen so you don't have to keep swapping back and forth while trying to cross-reference things. On top of that, there's a huge community rooms section because the game includes a room editor, meaning you can build your own escape rooms or play ones made by other players. Because of this and the sheer variety of official rooms, I never felt like I was solving the same puzzle over and over again. Each one felt very different from the last. There is also a sequel that was recently released, and at the time of recording there was a bundle with both games at 30% off. I do own Escape Sim 2, and puzzle-wise it's just as good as the first. They did change the art style quite a bit though, and part of me prefers the art of the first game over the more realistic look of the second, but there are upsides to both. The more realistic style does lean into more spooky and cinematic moments, especially in the Dracula and pirate ship levels, so it really does come down to personal preference. The game also offers DLC packs that add a new set of rooms with themes like steampunk, Wild West, and magic. Each DLC includes 4 rooms and costs £4.99 at full price. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of paid DLCs, but considering real-life escape rooms cost anywhere from £20 to £30 for an hour, I'm more than happy to pay just over £1 for a room here. The value of money is honestly great, and I've never felt shortchanged by any of them. Overall, Escape Simulator really does feel like the definitive digital escape room experience. This review is really short, but don't let that fool you. It's because there's not really more to say. The game is exactly what it says it is and delivers on the escape room genre the best out of any game I have ever seen before. So if you like what you see, I highly recommend picking it up when you can. Gorogoa is a game where you move hand-drawn illustrations around to connect them in unique ways, including layering and stacking them to unlock new illustrations that fit together into a larger puzzle. As you do, you follow a cryptic story about a boy's life as he attempts to reach enlightenment, touching on themes of childhood and mystical creatures. The story is intentionally ambiguous, so it's completely up to you what you take from the experience. First of all, the graphics of this game are beautiful. Everything is hand-drawn with a really distinct style. Each area you interact with is packed with detail and draws inspiration from various cultures. It's definitely a game where you'll want to take screenshots. I completed the game in just over an hour, so it's a really short game, but the time I spent with it was unlike anything I've ever played before. The gameplay is unique and I've never experienced anything quite like it. That alone makes it special because it's really rare to find a puzzle game that comes up with an entirely new type of puzzle. In terms of difficulty, nothing is particularly tricky. A lot of the game involved experimenting, clicking around, moving pieces, seeing what works and what doesn't until you find the solution. The mechanics never get old because the game doesn't overstay its welcome. If it was longer, I actually think it probably would have lost some of its charm that it has. If you're looking for a real brain teaser, I would probably suggest some of the other games on this list, but kind of like Monument Valley, Gorogoa is more of an artistic experience with light puzzle elements. It's perfect for a night in when you want something relaxing and thoughtful without needing to push yourself too hard. Price is worth mentioning though because it is on the higher side for such a short experience. On the PC it's £11.99 and I think that is partly because it won a BAFTA award. For anyone who doesn't know, the BAFTAs are a really big awards ceremony for the arts in the UK. It's mainly film and television, but they do have a game awards too. I managed to pick this game up for around £3.95 on Steam sales, and I actually felt really happy with what I got in terms of value for money. You can also get it on your phone for a similar price, so if you're someone who values playtime and replayability, it's probably worth waiting for a sale. But overall, I think Gorogoa is a really neat experience. I would recommend it to someone who's looking for a quiet hour with just really unique visuals and abstract narrative to think about. Another escape room game here, this time it's Escape Academy. In this game, you play as a student training at a school to become an escape room master by solving over a dozen rooms that vary in difficulty and each feel thematically unique. This is one of the better escape room games I have played. The controls are intuitive, similar to Escape Simulator. You can pick up items, combine them, or hold them in your inventory. There's also a pin feature to keep each item visible while you walk around, which is a nice touch. The puzzles are varied and balanced, some will challenge you and others you will get through with ease, but the harder ones never feel unfair or like the game is trying to trick you. For me personally, Escape Simulator just edges out as the more realistic escape room experience. That said, this does not make Escape Academy bad. If you enjoy escape room genres and you want more games in that style, this one will definitely give you a good time. Where the game tries to differ from Escape Simulator is outside of the rooms. There is a narrative that follows you as you play, turning parts of the game into a visual novel where you chat with NPCs on a map. The story itself is fine, but the escape rooms are definitely the focus. I often found myself skipping through interactions just to get to the next puzzle, and some of the characters feel a little bit hollow, which I do think is understandable given the game's short length. The developers are trying to tell a lot of story in a short amount of time, and it means some of the characters are underdeveloped. It really is an ambitious game for sure. There is a sequel coming out soon, and I have played the demo. It seems like the developers listened to a lot of this feedback that I was mentioning from the first game. The visual novel segments are actually replaced by a 3D mini open world where you can explore, talk to NPCs, and take on little quests to solve puzzles for other students. When playing the demo though, there was a major bug where I couldn't turn around and resetting meant starting an hour back. Even with that though, I am excited to see where this is going because this approach seems like it would work much better than the visual novel format of the original game. If the devs get it right, the sequel could easily surpass the original. Back to the first game though, the art really stands out. The character designs are fantastic and each person feels distinct. Just by looking at them, you get a sense of their personality and who they are and what they're gonna say. The art style is beautiful overall as well, even in the escape room areas themselves. It has a very strong, recognizable identity. Overall, I really enjoyed my first 2 hours in Escape Academy. It's one of the more enjoyable escape room games that I've played, and it just really shows that it was made by people who really love the genre. When it comes to Return of the Obra Dinn, if you like puzzle games, especially detective ones, just buy it and play it. Seriously, you will thank me later for this. This game is a genuine masterpiece, and if I could wipe my memory of it just to experience it again for the first time, I absolutely would. You play as an insurance investigator sent to assess the fate of a ship called the Obra Dinn, which was declared lost at sea in 1802. 5 years later, it mysteriously drifts into the port of Falmouth, and it's your job to figure out exactly what happened on board. Using a pocket watch, you can revisit the final moments of the crew and the passengers by standing near their bodies. While time is frozen, you're free to walk around the scene and look for clues. You might see someone being shot, which tells you how they died, or hear one character shout another person's name, giving you their identity, but it is very rarely that straightforward, and most of the time you're piecing information together across multiple scenes. You'll be using things like accents, clothing, where people died, how others talk about them, who they're associated with, and even their their tone of voice to slowly fill out a book. Your goal is to correctly name every person on their ship, their role, and how they died, all while uncovering the bigger picture of what really went down on the Obra Dinn. I have to say the voice acting is incredible, and over time you'll start recognizing characters just by how they sound. The way that lines are delivered can be a clue in itself. You can pick up on tension, friendships, or loyalty just through how people speak to each other, and that feeds directly into solving the mystery alongside the visual clues.
Captain! Open the door! Kick it in. Ah! Lest we break it down and take more than those shells!
You may take exactly what I give you!
Unlike a lot of puzzle games that push you through things in a strict order, this one opens up pretty quickly and gives you a lot of freedom. You can jump between cases and follow whatever thread interests you, and often while you're stuck on one death, you'll suddenly realize something about another one. It's not an easy game by any means, and there are moments where it literally makes your brain work the hardest it has ever done in its entire life, but it never feels unfair. Everything follows a clear logic, and when you get something right, it feels really well earned, not like you've just guessed it. Whilst talking about guessing, the game does a great job of preventing you from brute forcing it. You can't just guess answers until something sticks. To confirm progress, you need 3 correct conclusions at once, which not only stops random guessing, but also helps you realize when some of your earlier assumptions might have been wrong as well. On a personal note, I absolutely love the art style. It's instantly recognizable and completely its own thing. The developer Lucas Pope also made Papers, Please, and you can really feel that same confidence in doing something visually and mechanically unique in that game as well. I will say the visuals can make it slightly harder to see the details at times, which is a bold choice for a game that's so focused on small observations, but it never really felt frustrating to me. If anything, it kind of forces you to slow down and really pay attention to everything you're seeing. To wrap it up, The Return of the Obra Dinn is exactly what I want from a detective puzzle game. It challenges you, it makes you step away and think about what you need to do, and when those realization moments hit, it is so satisfying. It does something completely new within the genre, and it absolutely nails it. If you're even slightly interested in this game, or you enjoy detective puzzles at all, just play it, you will not regret it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing and giving it a like. I'm planning on releasing more videos like this one in the future, so do stick around to see those, and the algorithm boosting this content is a great way for me to continue making these. Are there any games on this list you have played before? What do you think about them? Do let me know down below. Also, if you have any ideas for videos you would like to see in the future, feel free to send them my way. I want to make sure that I'm making videos that you all want to see. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.